Hey, what's going on, guys? Mike here from Arizona, and I'm doing a video today for anybody who is brand new to setting up a saltwater aquarium, brand new to reefing, brand new in general. Like, you just want to know, how do I make salt water? How do I go about getting the correct salinity levels? Because when I first got into it, that was the part that was the scariest, is when I do a water change, how do I go about making sure that my water level has the correct salinity so I don't kill my fish? Or is there an amount that's too much or too little? So we're going to go over that today in detail, and we'll get started with saying that first off, if you're starting an aquarium from scratch, which in this case I hope that you are, especially that this is going to be for beginners, you start off by adding RO water into your aquarium. Okay, you don't really want to use tap. There's too much phosphates in tap water, and the phosphates will cause algae breakouts in the future, as well as hurt your fish and possibly invertebrates, depending on what's in your tap water. Like here in Arizona, our tap water has some really high minerals and heavy metals, so a lot of things will suffer in the conditions that we have. So RODI water is the best thing to start with. I've shown you in the past what I use for that. I actually use a Spectra Pure 5-stage unit with 2 DI stages. So what we're going to talk about today, though, is the salt part. So the water part I will get into in another video, but the salt part is what you really want to pay attention to. So let's pretend we know everything about the water part, and we want to get our salinity up so we can add fish and corals. So when you are planning your saltwater aquarium, you have to ask yourself, what's your plan? What are your goals? So do you want a goal of just doing fish with live rock? Do you want to do fish and corals? Do you want to do fish and anemones? Do you want to do a mixed reef? Do you want to do hard corals, soft corals? There's so many ways you can possibly go. But what is going to happen is you're going to need to make a decision on what kind of salt you want to use for your saltwater aquarium. So to the right, you have Red Sea Coral Pro Salt. This is what I'm actually going to go with in my frag tank in the fish house, because the reason being is that I can get a higher calcium level and higher alkalinity level than most bags of salt that I've looked at. Now, there are a lot of different brands out there, and there are a lot of great brands out there. I'm not saying one is better than the other, this one just happens to be a preference for me. On the left, I have Instant Ocean. This is a great salt. It's an inexpensive salt. This particular one is not necessarily for all corals, but you can do some corals on here, including soft corals, because this particular brand of Instant Ocean does not give you a higher reading of calcium or alkalinity. However, you will have a decent amount in your tank, but if you had lots of SPS corals, things of that nature that require high calcium, high alkalinity, this is not the salt you want to go for. This is the cheapest option, but I can tell you off the top of my head, without coming up with numbers and all that scientific stuff that you probably don't want to hear right now, you just want to know basics. This here salt will work for fish and soft corals, and you can use this and thrive. However, if you want to go to harder corals, you can go to Instant Ocean Reef Crystals. Again, another inexpensive choice. This is a little bit more expensive, the Red Sea. I pay just under $70 for this bag. This does 200 gallons of salt. Of salt water. This does 200 gallons of salt water as well, and I pay $55 or $52, I don't remember, somewhere around that range on Amazon. And just about $60 or less, you can get the reef crystals and be good to go for all different types of corals, okay? So anyone you want to go to it, that's perfectly fine. I'm not saying one is better than the other, I'm just saying one is better for different options that you want. So there are 2 types of corals if you're going to go to coral route: soft corals and hard corals. Okay, well there's more than 2 types, but those are, like, when you think of corals, you think soft and hard corals. Okay, if you're going to be doing some hard corals, you know, such as acans, Duncans, hammers, frog spawn, and these things might not, you know, sound like anything to you because you don't know anything about reefing, right? You might want to look those up because those are the ones that a lot of people go with. You're going to want to go with something like this, or Instant Ocean reef crystals, not this one, not the regular Instant Ocean, because that might be another question of yours when you go onto Amazon and look for stuff. I see two different options of Instant Ocean. One is a couple of dollars more than the other. Why is that? The one that's a couple of dollars more is more for higher calcium and alkalinity levels than this one right here, which is just for fish and soft corals or just fish only. Okay? That's going to be the best way I can put this to make this the simplest as possible. Again, we're not talking scientific numbers. We can get into that at a later date when I show you how to use checkers and different test kits to be able to tell what are my calcium levels, what are my alkalinity levels, what's my pH, all that good stuff. We're not going to get into that in this video, just like I've said earlier. It's all basics. So you might want to say, well, how do I know if my salt levels are correct? Okay, so this is why I have this right here on top of this box. This is called a hydrometer. All right, this is what most beginners start with. You can go to things like refractometers, which are more accurate. However, this will work just fine for anybody who is just getting into it. And this is actually what I'm going to use in the beginning of my setup until my refractometer actually comes in the mail that I ordered. And those are quite a bit more money than this. These you can probably pick up for $20 or less at your local fish store or on Amazon. Now let's talk about these numbers here and what they mean. Now again, it's a little bit hard for you to see, but I think we're good. So you might see 1.025, 1.024, all these numbers here that are kind of in silver. This right here, all the way to 1.026, these numbers are excellent numbers to be in. I would say if you're looking to be at a specific number for having just fish and no corals, the best number that I've done is 1.023. My fish have been the happiest at that level, just fish only, okay? If you're looking to get into corals, corals like a higher salinity level, 1.025, 1.026. These two numbers right here are probably your best range, and fish will do just fine in those numbers as well. So if you wanted to know for sure, I would get one of these, and what you do is you fill this up with water, and you make sure that the arrow points to the numbers here. So anything from 1.023 to 1.026 is perfectly suitable for fish. And if you want to do corals, you want to be on the higher end of the scale at 1.025, 1.026. So that's what you're going to need to do. So what we're going to do here is we're going to add some of this salt to this setup, okay? And we're going to slowly, over time, turn this from fresh water to salt water. Now, I am not going to film me adding the cups of salt, because really all I'm going to do is put a cup at a time, let it wait, and we're going to do a reading, and we're going to see where we're at. Let's do a reading right now. There is no salt in the system whatsoever, just so you can see here. So I fill it up, and as you can see, it goes right down to 0. That's because there is no salt in the system. Once we get the salt going, we are going to show you how it goes up. All right, so again, I am not going to film me putting the salt in, but you're going to see every time I do a test to see where we're at. All right, so I have added several cups of salt. I'm not going to give you the exact amount because everybody has different water volume that they're working with and all that stuff. And I'm not actually using real cups. I'm using these like plastic containers here. These are probably about the size of a cup. Not really sure exactly, but I've added a lot. More than 7. I know I said several, but you know, anything above 7. I would say right now I'm probably about 16 or so cups in. Let's see where we're at as far as salinity goes. Okay, so about 1.016 to 1.018. So we're getting up there, we're almost there. I'm gonna add some more and I'm gonna measure it again a little bit, and I'll let us tune in for that. All right, so here we go, another attempt. I added several more cups. We're gonna do it out of the top this time, just to see where we're at. And it looks like we're very close. We're about 1.019 to 1.020, and my goal is to be right about 1.025. I'll actually stop if it gets to 1.023 just to let it sit for several hours and let the salt dissolve even more, because sometimes when you're doing this, you could actually add more than enough salt, and because it has not dissolved yet, your salinity levels can go up. I do want to add though, and I keep forgetting to say this as I turn my camera off, do not add any salt to a system that has fish in it, because the salt will get in their gills and damage it. So you want to do it like this if there are no fish in your system. In other words, don't add salt directly to a system with fish. If you're doing a water change, obviously do this within a bucket or a brew container or something of that nature, because you don't want free floating particles of salt where it can get into the gills of the fish. All right, so we're gonna test it again, and hopefully we are close to what we need to be. Oh, yeah, I can already tell we're much higher. I added a couple more. But we are right on the money, and I'm gonna let that sit for about 24 hours and make sure that it doesn't get any higher than this before I start doing anything else to it. This here is 1.025 right on the head, and that's exactly where I want to be. But again, I'm going to let it sit for 24 hours, and hopefully it doesn't go any higher. If it does go higher, all we have to do is add more water. And that's basically it, guys. When this goes higher, you add more water, especially with evaporation. When something like this evaporates, which it won't evaporate from up here, but it'll evaporate on these sumps. So I'm going to have to draw a line to set a marker of how high the water column is. And once it goes below that, I know my salinity level is going up, so I have to keep the water level at a certain height. So eventually what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a reservoir of water somewhere up here, that when this evaporates, it'll be on a float valve, and it'll actually refill it for me to the correct height of water to keep the correct salinity level. So that's my video for today, guys. I hope it was helpful. There's a lot of things, again, I left out that you didn't need to see, like me adding the salt, but that's about what I left out. Everything else you'll get from watching this video. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave them in the comment section down below. Please like, please subscribe if you have not done so. I'll talk to you soon. You guys have a great day.